The National Cabinet will discuss today whether travellers from the UK should undergo more rapid testing pre and post flight. Is that enough to protect us from this strain?
Well, what we mainly need to do is actually make sure that we have wholesale quarantine in place with minimal breaches. There's been quite a number of breaches both here and New Zealand. We need to decrease that. But other things you can do is actually not have people travel in planes who are already sick. And that may mean pre-screening before people get on planes, particularly when they're having long journeys of 24 hours, both for their benefit and others. You've then got to work out how you handle those people, family of 5 and somebody sick, how do you get them on a flight, maybe a few weeks later. But there's lots of things you can do to decrease the chance of it coming here. But the reality is we're not going to be able to do that forever. We're going to still have to allow people who are Australian residents and citizens to come back to Australia from the UK just in the safest way possible. And they're probably 1 or 2% of them are carrying the virus. So, most aren't. And we've got to handle that in a way that's reasonable for them as well. But this is an issue. So far, the data that it's more contagious is mainly from England. There is one study from Denmark that suggests it is as well. And it's still not absolutely clear how much the virus is spreading more in England compared to what people were doing in November, December, compared to the virus itself. But I think we need to assume it can spread more easily. But by the same token, our protection against it is the same as we've been doing. You need to keep your distance away from people who are sick, not have crowds, wear face masks and eye protection if you're near people who are sick or are high risk, etc., etc. So those things we're going to have to continue to do, and they're going to protect us against all viruses, not just the UK one.
So is the hotel quarantine system still our best defence against the virus?
Well, we do need people who are coming from high-risk environments kept away from other people who are in the general community. And 1 or 2% of people coming back from overseas at the moment, at least, are positive, including, I might say, aircrew. So we do need to keep them away from the general community. Now, hotel quarantine was put up because when it was being done in people's homes, there seemed to be too many breaches. Equally important are the people who have got infections, etc., who are here. They're even a higher risk than the return travellers. But this is something we're going to have to do for another year or two in all probability. The vaccine will be rolled out, or vaccines will be rolled out as the year goes by, but they're not 100% protective. And if anybody goes overseas to a high-risk area, they are also, even if vaccinated, still capable of having the virus and potentially transmitting it to others. So we're going to have to learn how to do this. Unless we're going to become a hermit nation and have no travel either in or out, then we are going to have to make sure what we do better, but continue these sort of restrictions on both us travelling and people who travel here from high-risk areas.
Let's talk about the rollout of the vaccine. Yesterday it was announced that Australia will bring that rollout forward to next month, subject to approval. The Prime Minister says that around 80,000 people a week will be vaccinated. Is that a realistic target?
Well, I hope it's realistic. I mean, this is going to be done across all the states and territories, and the people most responsible for vaccination programs and have been very successful in Australia are all the state and territory health departments. So they'll be coordinating those. And, one assumes that it will be the case. You've got to remember there's not going to be huge amounts of vaccine available in the short term anyway. I think we've got a contract for 10,000 doses of Pfizer vaccine. That's 5 million people, but it won't all come on day one. It'll be slowly brought here over a period of time. And you've got to remember, we've got control of COVID in Australia. So from an ethics point of view, there are people in the US, Canada, Europe who've got a higher priority at the moment than we do. Now, we do need to get people vaccinated. The AstraZeneca one, providing the data is good and providing it gets approved, that is going to be manufactured in Melbourne by CSL. So we'll have many more millions of doses of those. But there's still a production and distribution problem or potential problems that should be overcome. The big advantage of the AstraZeneca one, it's got a normal cold chain. It can be kept in the fridge at 4 degrees rather than this -70 that the Pfizer one needs, which has got a lot of practical logistics, just getting it here from the US and then rolling it around Australia. But they're all problems that have been overcome. But how many people will end up getting vaccinated per day or per week? We'll just have to see as that goes and, make sure we have appropriate teams trained so that they give a vaccine that we know is safe because it's been kept in the cold chain it's had batches checked, and then we give it safely, because these are going to be multi-dose vaccines. So that's other problems that are different to the current vaccines we've got as well.
And how much of the population would need to be vaccinated before its effectiveness can be measured?
Well, we'll have the advantage in Australia. There'll be quite a lot of people in the US, Canada, and Europe that'll be vaccinated before us. So we'll have that data, both for efficacy and safety, and also how much it decreases transmission of the virus, because that's still not known, even if you're vaccinated and don't get sick. But basically, if you look at the really successful respiratory viruses that we've contained, because this virus spreads the same way, measles, German measles, we've had there very good control and elimination, but it required 90% of the population either being vaccinated or having immunity with a vaccine that's 90% effective. If you look at the influenza vaccine, it's about 30% effective on average, particularly in older people, or even sometimes less, and that doesn't stop transmission to any great degree. So these vaccines look to be much better than influenza vaccine. Hopefully they'll be as good as rubella and German measles, but it still requires a large percentage of the population to be vaccinated before we don't have a problem. And you've got to remember, still there's not a vaccine for children, which is a reasonable proportion of our population. So it's going to be a while before life goes back to normal, even with a vaccine that's rolled out very successfully in Australia, or vaccines that are rolled out.
Peter Collignon, appreciate your time.
Thank you.